My name's Janisqua now.
You know that is going on the intro clip.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome
to
the show. Oh, you good, dude?
I forget how much carbonation is in those.
The Gorilla Mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, those things are beefy.
I apologize.
That was amazing.
I don't actually apologize.
For real.
This is our podcast. I will
It is.
burp when I want.
Yeah, we can do what we want. You can choose to listen if you want.
Apparently, like, the mainstream media tried to attack Rich High for burping on the Unsubscribed podcast, and that was like a way to try and discredit him when he was going after Buffalo Public School District.
Because he burped?
Yeah. What an unprofessional person. He must
It's
be
a podcast.
Yeah. It don't matter.
There's no such thing as a professional podcast. Like, the more professional you try to make a podcast sound,
the dumber it is.
Because you're trying too hard.
Stop doing that.
Like, stop trying so hard.
Yeah.
Like, because if you try too hard, at that point, I would just rather, like, read an article or watch a documentary.
Right.
Like, it ain't you, bro. Like, don't even... Dude, speaking of it ain't you, bro. Okay, so we're driving home literally right before we come pick you up.
Uh-huh.
And we're leaving Rapid City, South Dakota. I'm driving the speed limit, okay? Mm-hmm. It's important. Mm-hmm. I'm driving the speed, like exactly the speed limit. Mm-hmm. This white Chevy gets up on my butt so hard that if I even took my foot off the acceleration, let alone hit the brakes, he's going to run into me. And then proceeds to romp on his gas and pass us. He almost, he had to have come a centimeter away from clipping my right back right back bumper. Comes just all the testosterone apparently for his undersized appendages, and then is like flipping us off. And I was like, I'm driving the speed limit. Okay, it's one thing. Like, if I was driving like 10 miles an hour under, okay, if you're in a hurry, cool. I was driving the speed limit, and I tend to, I maybe drive a couple miles an hour, a smidge over the speed limit typically. Mm-hmm. And so as we're leaving town, I then accelerate up to the speed limit and then go my normal couple over. And guess what? I catch up to homie. So he was in such a hurry to pass me to drive slower than the speed limit on the highway. Bro. And then he like panicked and turned into Dollar General as soon as we went to go pass him. And I was like, okay, you're clearly not that guy. Anyway, why? Okay. When it's more dangerous to speed in town, mm-hmm. you're in such a big hurry that you're flipping off a pastor as you pass them. He doesn't know I'm a pastor, but still, you don't know who's in the car that you're flipping off.
Yeah.
So he's in such a hurry to speed in town where it's more dangerous, but then where it's more beneficial, quote unquote, to speed on the highway, dude drives under the speed limit. That is what's wrong with our world.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, it was a totally pointless story. I just wanted to get it off my chest.
Fair enough.
Part of me I just kept thinking, man, I kind of hope you break down. And then I have to pull up behind you and be like, hey, could you use a hand? And then he's like, embarrassed. His face turns red. He's like, yeah, I could use a hand. I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have flipped my wife off. And then just drive off. I wouldn't do that. I would just give him help. Heat burning coals, man. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. It's one of those things that it just got under my skin just because of, like, I've got a less than 2-month-old in the car, mm-hmm. a less than 3-year-old in the car. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually driving the speed limit, and you still almost there's moments, man. Yeah. There's moments where my salvation is just like non-existent for a split second. And I'm like And it just like goes out the window and I'm scrambling. Like, I got to remember I'm saved. Okay, calm down. You know what I'm talking about? Like those moments where it's like, it would be so easy to not be Christian right now. Those are those moments. I posted a pretty good, before we get to that, let me go ahead and. Today I'm drinking the Sour Black Cherry Warhead Ghost. Sam's Club carries Ghost now.
That's cool. And
price per can is the cheapest energy.
But in the bedinging.
Price per can is the cheapest energy drink they have right now.
How much is it per can?
It's like $1.48 or something like that.
Ooh, I should pick me some up.
Yeah.
Especially, dude, the Sour Black Cherry Warhead. That's like my favorite flavor Warhead. I don't think I've had that Ghost, but
it's so good.
That sounds good and looks good.
You have to try it. They have it at Maverick.
I will pick one up later.
Yeah.
In the ancient days of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet he the maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall? Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear the call?
I posted on the Discord. If you haven't, you should join the Discord. And I'm going to take a split second just to ask. Normally we ask it at the end, but I'm going to ask it at the beginning so I don't have to ask it at the end. Would you mind sharing this podcast, liking it, subscribing, doing all those things? Take a split second. It really does actually help us a lot. And so just help us get the word out. And if you haven't done so, join the Discord. It's a lot of fun. Good conversations, good topics, and a lot of dank memes.
It's wild in there.
it's good
wild
fun.
In there.
Because it's, and nobody, and if you're worried that like, oh, you know, whatever, like there's a mixture of Christians, non-Christians. I think there's some cessationists, non-cessationists. Like there's just a full mix of Christians and non-Christians and atheists, like literally the whole spectrum. And we get into some crazy conversations. And I posed in there the question just the other day. I was like, okay. And I wanted to talk about this with you on the podcast.
I hope this is, I pulled it up. I think this is what you're talking about or getting ready to talk about.
What are you going to go ahead?
It was like, if you're not guilty of a crime. Yeah.
So yeah, the question is if,
dude, Red's comment cracked me up on this.
Oh, dude, let me read it out and you can just read it. So the question I posed was, if you are charged with a crime you did not commit, so you didn't actually do the crime, and then you get convicted of it. Yeah, you get convicted of it, and the penalty is death. Like it is a penalty, like it's a crime that's so severe you're immediately going to be executed. And you are convicted of it, but you are actually innocent in real life. You are 100% innocent. Is it biblically okay for you to escape jail or escape prison and escape your consequences? Is it biblically okay? Red's response was,
Lord forgive me, but I'm going to head out.
For real. That's my thought process. We had, and I can't remember who Laurus is. I don't remember who that is in real life, but Larhouse. His argument was that yes, it's against the Bible. It would be considered a sin to escape. I mean, not necessarily a sin, but it wouldn't be okay.
Right.
Because, you know, we saw like Paul, I don't know if he brought up Paul, but like the argument would be Paul, because Paul stayed in jail even when like there was the earthquake and everything, and he's like, they stayed.
Leave, yeah.
And so often, or time after time, Paul stayed in jail. My argument is the opposite, and like Peter is pieced out, let out by an angel in my mind, that means like I'm good.
Yeah.
But those guys, and the difference in argument would be those guys were all actually convicted for something they did do, though, because they were sharing about Jesus. However, it was something that should not be a crime, but they were convicted for something they did actually do. So we would then have to go to look at in the Old Testament, you've got Saul and David continued to flee Saul because Saul was trying to murk him because he was afraid that David was coming for him and wanting to overthrow his throne and all these other things. But David took off running.
Yep.
So, I mean, equivalent in my mind, and like legitimately in my mind, if you escape prison for a crime you didn't commit, I think you're good.
I think for us today, it comes down to following the Holy Spirit. If you're presented the opportunity to leave and you don't hear or feel like God saying, no, stay, this will benefit my kingdom way more.
Yeah.
If you don't get that, you're good. I would go.
You're good.
And if you did hear that or sense that, feel that, if you were led to stay and you left anyway, you screwed up and you get to deal with that, that with God. But I'm not going to sit here and blame you. And if I hear that, any of you pieced out of prison, I'm just going to assume until proven correct that you were actually innocent and God gave you the opportunity to escape and the Holy Spirit did not lead you to stay.
But, and I guess even thinking through like with Peter, they were guilty of something and the angel still was going to bust them out because of God's sovereignty.
Yeah.
So could you commit a crime that God is like, that's not a crime or that's not a sin, so to say. And the angels are like, hey, we're going to bust you out. It's still, again, because Peter, he did do what they accused him of doing.
Right.
And the angels still let him out. He was good.
Yep.
And so all this whole thing started because there was this legend, and I want to say it was in like Alaska or something like that. This guy that he swindled everybody. And this dude was a lowlife. Like I'm talking like we're like good Christian people. Like this dude was not that. And he did all of this stuff and like he made a lot of money swindling people, and like he bought a business from a lady for like pennies when it was really worth a ton of money. She was a widow and all this, like just a long process. And then he becomes really, really good friends with a priest. Then a legend goes that he gave his life to Christ. And then he was convicted of the crimes he had committed before he became a Christian. And the legend is that the Catholic priest helped him to fake his own death so that he could go and share the gospel. And in my mind, I don't know how I feel about that because he did do all of the crimes that he was convicted of. And so in my mind, he should have just paid the price. But who's to say that God wasn't like, I'm like, my story's not done with you. These guys are going a little overboard on this.
That could be. From where I sit, I would, now, granted, I'm not in that situation, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I absolutely would do that. But like the way I think about it right now is you take that punishment, you go to prison, whatever, and you do the best you can to witness in there. Like, right. And that's now your mission field.
Yeah. Which he did until it went time to face the gallows.
Right. But so he got broke out right before.
Literally. So the legend is that they had a special thing and they brought him. So he walked to the gallows and they built in a special entrance underneath. So he would walk in and then they would, raise him up, and then from there they would then drop him. And so then the legend is that they raised up a already deceased individual body. Yep. And then he followed. That's basically so. So it's literally the moment he would have been gone was the moment when he was quote unquote broken out.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting because according to the law, like, it's I don't know. It's just a weird thought process.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't either. But that one I feel like is a little more of a controversial take. Whereas if you're innocent, I feel like that's less controversial and more of just like,
Yeah.
at what point do we regard the legal system as, gosh, how do you say this? At what point do we guard the legal system and our law as a means of taking lives?
Yeah.
And honestly, that's part of the reason why, for me, I'm actually like, I'm not in the same grain as a lot of my friends because I'm against capital punishment in that sense. And my thought process has always been, if you even take one innocent person, man, it's almost not worth it. And then on the other hand, I also think my thought process goes to the best punishment for a crime that's bad enough that deserves capital punishment is for them to give their life to Christ and then fully feel the remorse for what they did. And a lot of those people who are going to be charged with capital punishment, they're never even going to feel remorse for what they did anyway.
Yeah.
They're going to the grave without feeling guilt a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I would rather see them have the opportunity to. Now, that does mean, they are going to get into heaven, but they're going to feel the full remorse for what they did. And that's, for a lot of them, that's the only way they're going to feel remorse. Yeah. And so maybe I'm a little sadistic in that, I want to take the high road to be like, I've got this noble cause, but maybe it is a part of a little bit of a sadistic, like I want to see them actually feel remorse for what they did.
Yeah.
And then ultimately find a way to walk in the forgiveness too, eventually, if you were to take that next step.
From a Christian standpoint, I'm absolutely anti-death penalty, but from like a reasonable, logical, societal standpoint, like just moral, but not like based on Christianity, moral, which is kind of oxymoronic, but whatever. Anyway, I think it's a good idea. I think it's effective for like if you're following the separation of church and state idea of like we're not basing our laws on anything religious, faith based, anything like that, then I think it makes a lot of sense.
For me, it would make more sense if it was actually cheaper. But with the way that the process goes in America, in other countries, different story.
Be clear, I think lethal injection is stupid. I think that's a dumb way to do it.
It's super expensive, too.
It's super expensive. It's not... I don't think it's nearly as humane as they tried to make
I don't think so either. I think they feel it.
The chair is also not good.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that.
Have you ever seen, what is that?
Green Mile?
Green Mile?
Yeah.
Oh, my
Dude,
gosh.
that movie is
brutal.
Freaking brutal. That movie is... It's a phenomenal movie. At some point, I still need to get
great book,
Ashley to watch that, but I don't want to watch it again. It's a great movie, but I think you only need to watch it once.
I read the book once, and I don't think I'll ever read the book again.
Yeah.
The book, it goes into, man, it makes you feel so much more.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll have to read that at some point. But anyway, yeah. No, and honestly, even like just my personal preference, dude, give me a firing squad.
Right.
Like, just
make it quick.
It's about as quick as you can
quick,
do
painless.
it. Cost like what, 41 cents for a 5.56 round?
I want a automated firing squad so that nobody actually is pulling the trigger.
I like that. Yeah.
That it's based off of voice command of, they put in around whatever, actually, and then as they read the rights, they get done. And then it's just kind of, or it's like timed, something like that.
Do you want better? Give them the Anton Chigurh treatment, the bolt gun.
Yeah, for real.
Here, place your head right here. Bang, done.
Yeah.
All right.
Something where the guards don't have to be the ones to, because for me, I don't want to be the one who pulls the trigger. And guilty or not, I feel like there is even if it's minimal, an impact, and the guards don't deserve that impact.
Nope,
they didn't do the crime. They don't deserve to deal with any of the consequences. Right. And so I want to minimize any impact to a guard as possible.
Yep, agreed.
But
agreed.
Yeah. Anyway, so speaking of 86th, did you see former FBI director posted on his Instagram a picture of seashells that he thought looked really cool that said 8647.
Nope.
What does 8647 mean to you? So my thought process immediately went, okay, the 47th president is...
Oh.
And what does 86th mean? That's weird. But then you dig a little bit deeper. And when Trump served his first term, there's a few different incidences. Specifically, the first one, the main one that I saw was Gretchen Whitmer had done an entire interview with a little like emblem on the desk behind her that had different colors, and it said 8645 during Trump's first term. And then now Comey has these she cells look cool. They did first of all, they didn't look cool. They look really dumb. And then second of all, you're telling me that the former FBI director, and he claims I didn't know what 86 meant. You're telling me the former FBI director doesn't know what 86 means, right? And then maybe, my brain goes to maybe coincidence. But man, everything that we know about MK Ultra, what are the odds that was just him trying to put out something so that somebody who is MK Ultra'd would see it and it would trigger whatever their hypnotist, I don't know what you want to call it, their MK Ultra-ness, that it would trigger that.
Training.
Makes me wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah, their forced training. It's just weird.
Well,
Just really weird.
Maybe find out.
Yeah. I mean,
Probably.
yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah.
Either way, it was just really weird. So the current FBI director brought him in for a lengthy questioning and removed he got quite a bit of like security clearance and stuff like that removed because of it. If that was a mistake, that's a dumb mistake. That's all I got to say about that.
I'm sorry. You were not an FBI director and didn't know what that could mean. Like, maybe you didn't think about it.
Right. Maybe you didn't.
There's a possibility that you didn't, like, it was like, I didn't think about that.
And that's, if he didn't do it, my thought process would go, he would just be like, oh, bro, I didn't even think about, he wouldn't go bro because he's kind of a nerd. He'd be like, oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
You like my nerd voice? It was fabulous.
That was pretty good.
Oh God. Yeah. I didn't even think about it. That's really funny though. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be his response. But he's like,
yep.
I don't even know what that means. I thought it just looked cool. It didn't look cool.
It's a lie.
It looked stupid. It looked like okay, if your kid had done it, like if Bennett went out and was like, number, and he did it with seashells, I'm like, that's really good job. But if I was just like walking by, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's really good. You know what I'm saying? Like,
can you pull that up?
Oh, yeah.
Because
I guarantee I can.
I want to see what they.
Bro, what? See what I'm saying? It looks dumb.
What was his caption? Read his caption.
Oh, Okay, so his caption was, cool shell formation on my beach walk.
No, it's not. What? You can't. What? Dude.
But then in his arguing, so I've got the quote right here. So when he was originally questioned about it, his response initially, I don't know if it's the same as it is now, but his initial response was, I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took the post down.
Dude.
So he assumed it was political.
Your initial...
What is political about it? If it's not violence, what is political about it?
Right.
What is political about 8647 if it's not what we know 86 to mean? What is it?
There's your initial...
Tell me.
Your initial synopsis of this situation does not do justice to how stupid and ridiculous that is. Dude.
Bro, right?
That is absurd. There's no way. It almost feels The only argument that I have in his favor is that almost feels too obvious. Like, that's too blatant.
It seems so stupid.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
It's like, part of me wants, and part of me wants to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt, just as the Christian in me. The I love Jesus and I hope other people do too kind of thought process. But that breaks down so fast. And what did you think it meant? You thought, so you assumed it was political. What about it was political? What about 8647 is political if it's not violence?
There's no other explanation.
What is it?
That is so random. And
you just assumed it was political and you didn't know what 86 meant.
Well, also, yeah. So like, and even if you had a reason to assume it was political, but you didn't know what, like how, you don't know the significance of it. Why would you bother to post it?
Right.
There's
cool because it's not that cool. It looks really, like I said,
nothing about that.
The alternative, and here's the alternative. Here's the honest alternative is he created it and he was thinking, oh, and it's significant to him because, you know, like you have a 4-digit pen or whatever. It's like you pick numbers that's like significant to you kind of thing. So these numbers are significant to him somehow. I know. But then he created it and he thought, oh, that actually looks kind of cool. And again, I'm giving so much benefit of the doubt. It's
an unreasonable amount.
Absolutely unreasonable.
An unacceptable amount.
Absolutely unacceptable.
I understand you're playing devil's advocate on that one, but like,
I'm not even playing devil's advocate. You're just dude's like, a nerd. And I want to see if like just what is the rule? More often than not, the simplest solution is the right answer.
Oh, I was going to go with the never attribute to malice what can be explained by incompetence.
So yeah, now you have two alternating arguments hitting head to head because that could have just been ignorance. But on the other hand, the most obvious, literally as soon as I saw it, the second I saw it, my brain already put together what it was in my mind. It sounds like somebody wanting to take out a hit on somebody else.
Yep.
That's instantly, that's what those numbers mean to me.
That's crazy.
And I'm just a rando dude. And I didn't even, and it's just like instantly, my brain goes, I didn't have to Google it. I didn't have to look it up. I already knew. You're telling me that I know more than our former FBI director when it comes to that kind of terminology? There's zero way. It's not possible. And if it is possible,
that's a problem.
Bro, promote me.
I was going to say that's a problem.
Give me a 17-figure job and let me run the FBI because I know more than you. You know, like that's not possible. And it's not. It's just not possible.
No.
But anyway.
Nope.
That was fun.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Dude, we can rapid fire some segments because I got a bunch of things.
Yep. Let's start with the leg. I'm so curious about that.
So they found a human leg at Taylor Swift's mansion, and the police immediately put out a report of foul play is not suspected.
What? Okay, hold on. What situation not involving foul play results in a detached human leg?
Yeah. Like, unless it was like a historical, but they would still have to run a test on it.
Okay. When you say leg, are we talking like leg bones?
The report I saw just said leg.
Bruh.
But even if it is just leg bones, even if it is just bones, you still gotta assume foul play until... Does she
have a cemetery on her property?
Right. I very highly doubt it.
I do too.
And so you almost have to assume foul play until you can prove that it's old, right? But they immediately put out a report, no foul play.
I was
and the test hadn't been, it was already sent away for testing.
If you're going to put out a statement to dispel like immediate rumors, you start with something to the effect of like, we've not ruled anything out.
Yeah, or like
we don't know.
Or like we suspect it's a historical,
right? Yeah.
Or something like that. No foul play suspect.
I don't think anybody.
Immediately, my brain is now. I'm convinced there was foul play.
Yeah,
and my brain immediately goes the other side. And I'm like, she did it, just like Obama with his chef.
I keep circling back to this, and our main topic. I will also bring this up again, but to me, anytime it goes just back to the lady doth protest too much. Anytime there's so like that heavy of an argument against something, and especially when it's by someone in power, my assumption is you're lying, and whatever you're saying is not true. Is true.
Right.
Like,
immediately.
There's no reason for you to work this hard to convince me of something that I wasn't already thinking about unless it's true. It's just the way that it tends to go.
1,000%.
So,
But,
yeah, if you're immediately going to go, we're pretty sure Taylor Swift doesn't kill anybody.
Yeah, she didn't do it.
Unalive anybody.
Sure, they just found these. So I'm worried about it. Just a fresh.
How was it discovered? Who discovered it? How did it get caught?
I didn't look into it enough because I was like, two parts of my brain went, they're probably not going to put out all the information anyway, so I don't want to waste time researching it. And then the other part of my brain went, it's a little more fun just throwing it out there.
The image that I have in my head is the frickin' mailman rolling up, getting out, and her dog comes trotting up with a friggin' leg in its mouth. And it's like,
oh, man.
I need to call the police. Like, I think that's like the only situation where I could see, unless she was like throwing a party and somebody just walked into the bathroom and there's just a leg in the tub.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, I need to call the police. like what? What alternatives are there? How else does this happen?
So I guess, okay, the only way I could see it being, okay, so if somebody like,
wait,
like, let's say they
time out. Has anyone heard from Travis Kelce this offseason?
For real. but let's say, okay, my thought process, the only way I could see there no foul play suspected is if somebody was like in the vicinity, a few months back, and for some reason they lopped off their own appendage and then lost it. And then later on, they're like, hey, we finally found it. Like, that's the only solution. Then that makes no sense because that wouldn't happen.
That makes less sense than the mailman and the dog.
But like, that's the only way no foul play could be suspected right off the bat.
Yeah, right?
For me, that's the only way. You have to
know where the leg came from before you can absolutely rule out foul play.
Yeah.
Now, granted, is not suspected does not mean is not possible.
That's true. That's fair.
But that's a really weird way
no, it was
to
a
say
leg,
that.
not a butt.
That's a really... That's such a dumb way to say that, though.
Yeah. It was just, I thought it was more comical than anything. Hopefully it was just comical. Hopefully it's just like a old burial, maybe somebody who lived there got buried on the ground. And
I was asking a genuine
like
question. Have we heard from Travis Kelce since the Super Bowl?
I have purposely avoided him. I would bet because he's got that podcast.
Okay.
I don't know. He's probably, anyway.
Dude, if Taylor caught him cheating, then I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That could be his leg.
Exactly.
I will never pass up an opportunity to talk crap on Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I agree. But speaking of Travis Kelce, did you see that Colorado passed a law making it illegal to misgender somebody?
It's the greatest segue of all time.
I'm glad you liked it.
Oh, it was perfect because I knew what you were doing as soon as you said Colorado. Oh, ow, my stomach.
Oh, man.
Oh. Yeah, I did. I did see that.
I had to Google what dead naming was. Do you know what dead naming is?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do.
It's called the something. Yeah, but anyway, I didn't even know what that was. I had to Google it. But yeah, they made it illegal, and there's already a Christian camp that they don't have separate facilities. that the state is trying to shut down and telling them that and they applied for a religious objection, and the state was like, you have to change your beliefs, basically. I don't see how it'll stay. I just really don't.
Colorado, man.
But they have a website, and I do not encourage you to do this, but if you have a VPN, you can totally flood the system with bogus things because they don't require you to identify yourself in order to report. But in good old 1984 fashion, they have a reporting hotline, so you can report on your neighbors and whoever anonymously.
Dude.
And I was like, well, what if, and I sound like a 90-year-old grandma saying this. I know I do. But if you're a 90-year-old grandma, I love you. Thank you for listening to the show.
Husky voice.
You're amazing.
For a 90-year-old grandma.
Okay. What if my gender is I love Jesus? and they refuse to refer to me as that. Is that a good grandma? Anyway, I love you, 90-year-old grandmas. You're awesome. Thank you for listening to the show. But anyway, so if you're gender, so like, but it goes down that path of, if you get to choose what, then they can't. And so my opinion, and so like, I'm halfway joking, halfway like legit. My thought process is, you can start making up whatever you want to make up, and they have to call you that. So if you want to say Jesus is king, like, they have to identify your gender as Jesus is king.
Right. Well, and on top of that, so like the whole thing that's such a huge problem with it is that you can just change your mind. It's just whatever you feel like, whatever you want. And so today, my name could be Billy Bob, Joe Bob, Timmy Tang, I don't know. And then like, I can ask you to refer to me as that. And then tomorrow you could refer to me as that. And I can be like, oh, my name's Janisqua now.
Janisqua.
And you didn't call me that, so you go to jail.
You know that is going on the intro clip.
Oh, yeah. My name is Janisqua. Yes.
It's just so dumb.
You just change your mind. It's like, believe it or not, straight to jail. Straight to jail.
Straight to jail.
That's so you can't do that. And so that's
It's not.
It is so 1980. It's literally, that's the whole problem with like, that's why 1984 is such a scary thing, right? Is because it's just, the truth doesn't matter.
Right.
Reality doesn't matter. Reality is what I say it is, and you have to abide by that. And if you don't, prison.
Exactly.
You can't do that.
And I don't think it'll stand because
it can't.
There's the First Amendment right. I have a First Amendment right. I can call you whatever I want to call you. I have the First Amendment or freedom of speech.
When was the last time that Colorado or any blue state, city, region, whatever, showed any sort of respect for the Bill of Rights?
Oh, I don't disagree. But
No,
once and here's my thought process.
Supreme Court, it's toast.
If I didn't have a family, part of me would want to move to Colorado and just start misgendering people until I got thrown in jail. So eventually, when the Supreme Court overturns it, I become a millionaire.
You get paid. Yep.
I'm going to be so wealthy.
Yep.
And I am not recommending you to do that. Just want to make that clear. This podcast is also for fun. Don't do it. You shouldn't do it. Don't do this at home. But anyway, if I was a single dude, I would totally be doing that because like, it would set you up for the rest of your life in 2 years when it gets through the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court says, you violated the First Amendment, the freedom of speech of all of these people that you fined and threw in jail. And now I then am going to then counter sue and say that you gave me PTSD and now I am afraid of people.
Can we
Done.
Can we like
So dumb.
patent that idea so that if someone does that, we get a portion of that?
Hey, if you're listening to this and you had the idea,
that's intellectual property.
Shoot me 10% of whatever. Like, I don't know. Just you do all the footwork. Give me credit for the idea, okay? I didn't give you this idea. Anyway, man, there's just been a lot of random stuff going on in the world. It's not like end of the world, but it's just like crazy.
Yeah.
But the last thing that I want to talk about that's kind of interesting is, did you see that there is a mile-wide volcano that is likely going to erupt by June, they're predicting?
Is it under Brazil?
It's underwater. It's in the ocean.
Okay.
Did I say underwater? Anyway, yeah, it's in the ocean, and
Where at?
I can't remember exactly where this. I want to say off the coast of. It's off of the American West Coast.
Oh, okay.
I want to say
in the Pacific. Okay.
I think that I don't quote me on that, but supposedly now allegedly they said that that they don't suspect that when it does begin to erupt, they don't think that it would do a lot of damage, but that it could start triggering small earthquakes. But my thought process is if a mile-wide volcano goes off, like the earthquakes, I feel like it's going to trigger more than just small earthquakes.
Yeah. California finally going to go bye-bye.
But according to the geologists, they say that this thing actually does like regularly go off every however many years. And I don't know how, and I can't remember how often it is, but it's like every few thousand years or something like that. Supposedly it doesn't do a lot of damage, but my brain, I don't trust. Speaking of, I don't trust. Let's just transition, because I didn't do a lot of research on that, but I wanted to throw it out there, so maybe we can talk a little bit more about it next week. Did you see the Kentucky tornado radar?
So I didn't actually see the radar. I heard a little bit about it, but I haven't actually seen it yet.
Okay, I just got done showing him the radar.
Okay.
It's weird looking, yeah?
Yeah. A lot of things about that are really weird.
Yeah. Well, and then they're blaming so it traveled 500 miles on the ground, which is nuts in that region, period.
Well, that's nuts, period. That's a long way for a tornado to go, let alone...
But then...
In a straight line, by the way. A straight line.
And they also claim that the reason why they weren't alerted was because of the current president defunding... But the National Weather Service...
Bad, everything.
But if you understand, and they're saying that because they think people are ignorant.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of people are. Actually, a lot of people are.
Yeah.
But the National Weather Service employs 12,000 people. You're telling me that by defunding 10%, so 1,200 people.
Oh, yeah. 12,000 people, not 1,200. Sorry.
Sorry. So you're telling me that by defunding that many people, you still can't afford to have a weather forecaster on 24/7? What?
Yeah.
There's no way they didn't have a forecaster on.
Yeah.
Because eventually they did designate it as a dangerous weather service or a dangerous weather phenomenon event. There you go. A dangerous weather event. And then they did eventually call it a tornado. Somebody had to do that. That comes from up above. And so they had somebody on. They just weren't calling it. Even though there was a tornado on the ground. It's sketchy.
Yeah.
There's people, because there's weather forecasters that are not employed by the National Weather Service that do go live on YouTube and other platforms, which I watch. I follow most of them. Yeah. They were calling it all along. There was one guy, he was straight up. He was like, I cannot fathom why they haven't at least designated a dangerous weather, let alone called it a tornado warning and started throwing sirens out 40 minutes before they finally designated it for that region.
Yeah.
And if these guys are quote unquote amateurs, even though they have their degrees in and they're fully, they could work there if they wanted to. They just make a lot. Yeah. They just make a lot more money. There's a few of them.
I know there are, but I'm curious if he made it to that one.
I don't know if he, I don't know if he did in person, but I did see a clip of him watching the radar. But he does it from his vehicle more often than not anyway. So I don't know.
Right.
But anyway, so these guys are doing this and it just sounds like a bunch of garbage.
Well, and
then you sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So then I assume this is what you were about to say. So watching the radar, looking at the radar. Now, I've seen plenty of times where like radar will glitch. When you're watching it live happening.
Right.
I've literally never seen it do that on like a recorded, like a video of the whole thing from the National Weather Service. Why is that right there? I've never seen it like that. That was wild. It turns into like two super long strips.
I'll post it on the Discord.
It looks. I don't even know what it looks like. It doesn't look like any radar image I have ever seen. It doesn't make any sense. That's not how like clouds behave. That's not how the jet stream forms storm systems.
Yeah.
It didn't look real. If you know what, like if you ever have paid attention to radar stuff, it doesn't look like reality at all.
Yeah.
It was so weird. Have they come out and said anything about like why?
I haven't seen anything yet. But I will also admit I have been not on my phone as much this week. But I did enough to, I saw it, but I posted on the Discord. So if you guys are listening to this, you now can go watch the video I just showed him. But yeah, it looks weird. And I've seen a couple people say that there is a patent for a device that can basically like superconductor heat straight lines like that over a large region. And and subsequently it then can, and this is according to the patent, not necessarily, we don't know if we've ever seen it actually happen in real life before, but according to the patent, it like superconducts almost like a microwave in a straight line. And then that then can spawn tornadoes off of it because it basically like just super condenses the air with water. But I wish I would have saved that one instead of or both, but I forgot to save it. But yeah, but that's according to a patent, not necessarily according to something we've observed in real life.
Right.
We don't know what it does.
Right.
But it looks, at the very least, it looks sketchy. And my brain goes, why?
Yeah.
But even outside of the conspiracy theory of like, because I know my brain tends to go towards that as a default now, especially since running the podcast. So now trying to take a step back from that and just go, okay, what is this event? At the very least, it is super suspect to me that they didn't have somebody even looking at it and going, hey, this storm looks really dangerous. Maybe we should call Frank over here and have him work some overtime tonight to make sure that everywhere that needs called gets called.
So,
and they didn't.
One more question, and you probably don't know this one, but so was the town that got waxed without warning, was that like like right after the tornado had touched down, or was that further along, or do you know?
I want to say that was further along. Let me look at
because like I could maybe understand how like if a supercell formed rapidly and then put down a tornado, if you were low staffed, like you didn't have somebody paying super close attention, how that could maybe catch like one place off guard as soon as like if the tornado started like on top of a town. Right. But like if it's like 20-30 miles or more into the path of the thing, it's like there's no way that you didn't have somebody catch that by then.
No, that would have been because it started in Missouri and then went east, and this was in Kentucky. So it would have had to have been at least a bit down.
What?
Because this tornado, they started in Missouri, and I saw quite a bit of footage about them in Missouri too. Because they were like, because people were because it hit a suburb of St. Louis, I think.
Okay, aside from like National Weather Service alerting people, you mean to tell me that you didn't have anybody like local paying attention to the radar? Because that just runs.
Right.
The radar just runs. You can get on National Weather Service and view it yourself anytime.
From what I understand, local people cannot be the ones that call the tornadoes. It has to come from above. But the local people report it to above.
Right.
From how I understand.
Someone was reporting that.
Somebody was close.
Reporting that. People were reporting it.
I mean, even at the very least, like when we have risks of tornadoes, everybody and their dog that's a certified spotter is out on an elevated surface watching.
Yep.
Somebody saw it, reported it, and they still were like, Also, radar indicated that there was a tornado on the ground like way before it happened.
Oh, for sure. There's no way it didn't.
It's a sketchy situation that at the very least we need to be asking questions why. And my gut tells me, even beyond the political, like I said, the conspiracy theory stuff that I tend to lean towards because my brain's wired that way. The practical side of things, it feels political.
Yeah.
And when you start playing with people's lives for political purposes, you're wrong. Period.
Yep.
I can't get on board. When you start playing games like that in order to get more money, and they immediately, the second that it was done, the narrative was, Well, they didn't have it rated because of the funding cut literally right off the bat.
That was like the first comment I saw.
Right off the bat.
The first video I saw about the tornado was
Yeah.
like, Trump cut funding to National Weather Service, and so we didn't have the warning systems in place anymore.
Right.
What?
But even if he didn't, restructure the system so that the local people can call it.
Yeah, there's no reason. There's no...
Or the rando YouTuber that has more experience than 90% of the people that work for the National Weather Service.
Get
off me.
There is no excuse to not be prepared to rely on someone other than the federal government to tell you when a disaster is coming.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. The resources are available. You have an army of like weather obsessed people who are constantly watching for that stuff. They never stop. It's their obsession. It's what they want to do with their entire lives.
Yeah.
But they're not employed by the National Weather Service. You just look to them.
Yeah.
They will make sure you always know when a tornado's coming. Like, there's no reason.
It's crazy.
There's no reason.
It's nuts. Yeah.
Stop blaming your problems on the federal government. The only thing that the federal government is to blame for is interfering too much in your life.
I know. I want
less government interference.
And I'm not even, there's a lot of things that like I can make the argument back and forth both ways just because I tend to, me well enough to know that I kind of sit on the fence, between political parties, between political ideologies. I'm not afraid to disagree with politics and stuff like that. This is an instant where all of this is why I can't buy, and I probably would assume most people are probably in the same vein as me, why I can't buy into our political ideologies is because of stuff like this where it makes it very obvious that we're playing politics rather than taking care of people.
Yep.
And when we play politics rather than take care of people, when we play politics versus, and not even taking care of people in the sense of like, you know what I'm saying? Just like simple things.
Yep.
It's broken. Yep. And throwing money, and this is where my thought process goes, is I can already see the fissures. There's a crack. Throwing more money at a broken problem doesn't fix the problem.
Yep.
And so we could triple their budget. The system's still broken. This showed the system is still broken.
Yep.
And it's kind of like the healthcare thing.
Yep.
It's like, hey, our healthcare, we've got some problems. Everybody has to have a healthcare problem. Whoa. Let's fix this problem first. That's my thought process. It's broken. Let's fix it. And then when it's fixed, we can talk about giving them more funding.
Yep.
But
final comment on that topic. If you think, and especially if you still think, that we need more government intervention to fix anything, you have not been paying attention, and you need to go back to episode 1 of this podcast and listen through all of it. The government does not need to be involved.
Government.
Anywho, speaking of governments and things that have been covered up and, I don't know, history, weird stuff.
Yeah. We'll save all the rest of those topics for next week's because I've got a lot. I have so many things that have been popping up in the news that I'm like afraid we're just going to become like, we're just going to talk about the local news now. Yeah, I think we erased half, but we want to at least start part 1 of Tartaria, and we're gonna do 2 parts of this. Well, and almost it's 3 parts because we hinted it last week and we shared a little bit. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, we kind of introduced Tartaria last week. This week, I want to kind of get beyond the introduction, at least hit a couple of points with Tartaria. Now, the one thing about Tartaria that is interesting to me that I've noticed, and let me know what your thoughts are. You can let me know in the comments what your thoughts are.
I get to talk about it now.
Exactly. The thing about Tartaria that I found maybe mildly frustrating is that it's almost become this catch-all of every theory that we can think of. We're just going to blame it on the lost civilization of Tartaria.
Yeah.
And some of the theories that come along with it, I'm on board. And I'm like, that makes sense. Let's dig into this.
Yeah.
And some of the other theories, I'm like, what? Get off, what? And it's just become this, and the theories contradict each other regularly. Because you've got the contradictory of the global reset,
Right.
but also that they existed until the 1800s.
Right.
And then the global flood, but also there was a global mud flood in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And they just erased 200 years of history.
Yeah.
But then also, you know what I'm saying? It becomes this catch-all for bunches of different conspiracy theories. And so for me, I find Tartaria really intriguing because I feel like there's enough truth in it. And so I feel like there's enough truth in it that part of me almost wonders if the original conspiracy theory hasn't almost become compromised on purpose to try to make it sound crazier.
You think that maybe there's been intentional piling on of garbage,
Yes,
and just random crap to discredit the original, plausible theory.
I think so. I feel the same way with Antarctica.
Yeah.
I feel like with Antarctica, there's enough conspiracy theories, and you start throwing out World War II bases and this, and it's like, okay, we're on board. And then you start going crazier and crazier with it. And it just gets to this thing where it's like, well, not only is it an entry to the inner Earth, it's also an outer ice wall. It is also where the aliens show up. It is also a base for and it's like, whoa. It can't be all of those things.
Right.
I mean, I guess it could, but like the odds of it being all those things.
Probably not all
Yeah. And it's like, okay. Let's take a step back and weave through. And I think a lot of the conspiracy theories we talk about on the show, I do think there is some, MK Ultra is another one where I feel like there's intentional misdirection.
Agreed.
And now MK Ultra, the misdirection is 100% on our government.
Right.
But with Tartaria, I feel like the misdirection, if Tartaria was real and it did exist, I feel like the misdirection would have to come from the civilizations that were either afraid of them or the ones that conquered them.
Yeah.
One or the other. Or because I don't think, because the U.S. government, well, again, and that depends on the timeline of Tartaria.
Yeah.
Is this a civilization? Now, I could tangibly see this being a pre-flood civilization. Mm-hmm. And if you take Tartaria and you make it a pre-flood civilization, a lot of the other theories make sense, but a lot of them don't. But if you make it a post-flood civilization that was extremely powerful, a lot of the other conspiracy theories make sense, and some other ones don't.
Yeah.
Now, what if Tartaria, again, is a catch-all for a bunch of conspiracy theories? What if we have two civilizations? We have a pre-flood civilization, and then we have a post-flood civilization. And the post-flood civilization was just very advanced, very militaristically advanced and smart.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were a reserve of, let's say Nephilim or demonic spirits or something like that. Now we can start bringing into a bunch of the conspiracy theories.
What do you think about the possibility of both? Like both having existed?
Yeah.
And like there being some overlap as far as like who was part of it, what it was about, like the purpose of it, stuff like that.
I could tangibly see that.
Okay.
But my only problem with that would be that the pre-flood civilization would not be Tartaria. It would have been a pre-flood Nephilim civilization that built a bunch of pyramids.
I think that's the case either way.
I think that tangibly makes sense.
Regardless of whether you think they're connected or not, I think what you're saying about the pre-flood one is still true.
Yes.
So,
I think that
fits in nicely with other like theories we've talked about with pre-flood stuff. So
well, and even like looking at so we've got pyramids all over Earth. Now the argument would be, what is the easiest way to build a really, really big, tall structure? You just build a pyramid. Because if you try to build it too narrow, it can fall over, blah, blah, blah. So everybody's going to build pyramids early on. Yep. When you're a little kid, and I have my son has his building blocks, and he starts putting stuff up, the most sound structure he builds is a pyramid.
Yep.
It's going to be a primitive, tall structure.
If you think about just like heaping stuff on, like if you make a pile of things, it kind of turns into a pyramid.
It can become a pyramid.
Doesn't necessarily have to have the corners, the nice corners, but it's kind of that. It's that shape. It's a pile.
And so you
just
have
a cornered pile.
Yeah, for real. So you have more advanced pyramids. You have less advanced pyramids. Your more advanced would be, you're looking at Egypt. Your less advanced would be what we talked about in the effigy mounds. In South America. There's a dirt pyramid that somebody did bring up. She's an avid listener of the show. She's solid. We're hoping to bring her on at some point this summer. But her theory, and she brought up, that's a lot of dirt to move to make the pyramid that they did make. And it is a lot of dirt. And so at the very least, even if you're not advanced enough to be moving ginormous bricks, you're advanced enough to move a lot of dirt. And that still takes an advancement that is more than what we are taught past civilizations had. And so even if you remove Egypt, there's a very clear indicator that civilizations in America, in South America, or I guess I should say North America, Central America, South America. You've got civilizations in Asia, in Eurasia that built pyramids. There's pyramids literally all over the world. So they at least have an advancement that we are not taught one way or the other. So even that alone, just that factor, now somebody throws out Tartaria to me and I'm going to latch on to it because we already know that either we are being lied to about past civilizations' advanced beliefs or knowledge, we're either being intentionally lied to, or simply we're just dumb enough to think that past civilizations weren't smart. They were human, dude. Our intelligence, I don't feel like, in my mind, that humans today are necessarily smarter than humans 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
If anything, I would almost argue that we would almost have to get dumber because of the degradation of our DNA. And because of that, I feel like past civilizations would have had intelligence. It's just intelligence builds off of intelligence. When we have the iPhone, whatever, 565th, and they tweak one little thing each installation. But if you take the iPhone 1 and compare it to the iPhone 492, which came out the 15th of this year, you're going to see a stark difference.
Yeah.
So does that mean the people who worked on the iPhone 1 were dumber than the people who worked on the iPhone 20?
Well,
No,
so this is where
they're not.
people confuse intelligence and knowledge. You can have a crap load of knowledge and be dumb as a box of rocks. It's just repeating information.
90% of them.
Knowledge is just having information. Intelligence is how you work with the information you have. And so, we're not growing in intelligence, or at least I don't think we are.
Think we are.
I think we have continued to build on knowledge that we've had for a long time and gain more knowledge. That's the advancements in technology. But as far as intelligence and working with the technology that we have, no, I don't necessarily think that we have grown in that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so do I think that someone as intelligent, let's say they have a team together of the smartest people, could they have built the things that they built? Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And again, I go now, we're getting into pyramids a little bit more than I wanted to, but the idea of pyramids having to have been built very fast breaks down a little bit for me, and it doesn't make sense to me. I think everything's going to take time.
Yeah.
And when you add time to the equation, it makes more sense. I mean, that's what evolutionists have done for the last 100 years. You just add more time and all of a sudden everything makes sense. But for things like the pyramids, they don't want to add time to it. It's aliens.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe they were, again, go back to maybe they were giants, maybe they're Nephilim, maybe they were whatever. We can throw in the equations.
Yeah.
But that's not this. So the theory of Tartaria is that they were, and again, this is, now you want multiple scenarios. One, people believe that the Tartarians were not human, that they were a civilization that existed either before us and had been here forever, or they were an alien species from the planet Nibiru or whatever. I think I might be mixing 5 things, but Tartaria is hard to keep track because there's so many. And then after you ask him, ask Wes Huff and see what he has to say.
I just say old BC knows a lot of the random lore
Garbage.
options.
Anyway, so but there's also what?
I said maybe he's on to something. I don't know.
I
Math.
He's on allegedly. Anyway, I still want him to sue me. Anyway, so there's also the theory that they were just a really, really smart human race, and there's also another theory that they were Nephilim. Mm-hmm. So if they were post-flood Nephilim and giants, and maybe that's where the giant race went to. Okay, the pyramids of Egypt, for me, if giants are building it over a longer period of time, my brain stops having a hard time with how it got built.
Yeah.
You throw giants in there with some mammoths, some woolly mammoths, and bro, that's a 50-year project. You know, It no longer is crazy to me. Yeah. It's more just like, oh, that's a really beautiful architecture. So Tartaria, the idea is that it was a civilization that could have possibly been the Nephilim, and they're giants, and they're building pyramids all over the world, and they're traveling. And remember when we did talk about the giants and kind of how it seems like they kind of like the post-flood giants, that there's conspiracy theories about how they kind of went this way and that way, and then eventually wound up in America, and then eventually ended up in Antarctica. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what if it is Nephilim and they are building pyramids, and the reason why they go from super duper advanced to less and less and less advanced is because they had less and less time to do things in each region, because they kept getting chased away and their numbers were dwindling and their population was, getting smaller and smaller because humans were battling with them everywhere they went. Mm-hmm. And so it could have been this, and this is my personal, that's just me, I'm just thinking through this kind of thing. But we do know, and we talked about last week, we do know that a country, an empire, named Tartaria existed at the very least on maps.
Yep.
Between the 16th and 19th centuries, when map making became very predominant and got pushed out. Now, some people theorize that they were just the map makers throwing a rando name on there that basically meant unvoyaged territory or whatever.
We don't go here.
Yeah. But again, considering some of the other areas that they did go and then they didn't go there, seems kind of suspicious to me. And then why into the 19th century would they continue to put that knowing it wasn't there? But I feel like based off of maps, there was a empire known as Tartaria.
Yep.
It's hard to battle that in my mind. And now you could make the argument, go along with the imaginary or the map maker theory and that this doesn't exist. Well, now we have a bunch of conspiracy theories that have evidence that now don't have a term. And if we can separate those conspiracy theories, I feel like we can find some truth in some of them, but not necessarily all of them as Tartaria. Right. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
I think just using the term Tartaria as a catch-all, it does Tartaria a disservice. One of my favorites, and we're not going to be able to obviously talk all about Tartaria today. We're going to do a two-parter on this, at the very least 2 or 3-parter. Mm-hmm. We're going to do a 2-parter on this, and we'll break down Tartaria and some of these theories, each individual theory maybe next week.
Okay.
And, from the mud flood theory to the historical, the resets, the history resets. We'll go into all of that next week. But this week, I want to throw out just a couple of things that are really intriguing. And feel free to bring up your own as well.
Okay.
One thing that I've found intriguing is, have you heard the conspiracy theory that the Great Wall of China doesn't make sense as a Chinese wall because the posts are on the wrong side? That it would have to have been somebody who was trying to keep the China people out of China or vice versa were trying to keep them in or whatever, rather than keeping the outside of China out of China. It would have been the opposite.
So I missed that theory, but I did come across one of the things that people who believe in Tartaria kind of mention a lot is that Marco Polo didn't mention the Great Wall of China in his like visits through Asia.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't. Apparently, he didn't mention that.
When did Marco Polo go through?
Well, so that's what historians bring up, well, he was there in the 13th century, and the Great Wall was mostly built in the 16th century. Bro, how many miles is the Great Wall of China? How big is that freaking thing?
I thought it was built over hundreds of years.
That's what I was going to say. How long do you think it took to build that freaking thing?
Right.
Dude, it had to be several hundred. There's no way.
As long as it took to build the pyramids.
Way longer. Way longer. Way longer. Because
my theory of how long the pyramids.
Right. Well, okay. So the pyramids, the thing about them is they're in one spot. You're bringing resources to a spot. The Great Wall of China, now maybe you can pick up some of those resources along the way, but you're spanning that over, what is it, like 1,600 miles or something like that? It's stupid long. That thing is freaking massive. The amount of material for used in building the Great Wall of China has got to be like 100 pyramids. Like, it's insane how freaking... Look that up for me, please. It's insane how freaking huge that thing is. The length of the Great Wall of China.
It is... Make a guess.
1,600 miles.
13,171 miles.
Okay, it's
21,000 kilometers.
It's way bigger than I thought.
It's
way bigger than I thought. Is that like the perimeter?
That's a lot of miles, dude.
That's like the perimeter of the U.S. Right? Well, probably not the perimeter, but it's probably like half. It's the perimeter of the U.S.
Make a guess. How many miles do you think the perimeter of the contiguous United States is?
20,000.
13,699.
What?
So that means...
Wait, how close was that?
So the Great Wall of China is 13,171 miles. The perimeter of the United States is 13,689.
Bro, my guess...
Literally 500 miles off.
Oh, that was on point.
That was... Dude, for real, it's as if they built a wall around the United States. And as we've experienced... How hard is it to build a wall on one side?
We can't even build it on Mexico, bro.
We can't even build one wall with our advanced materials. Yeah, right?
It's not feasible. You can't do it.
Dude, could you imagine building a wall around the United States?
13,000 miles of... How tall is that friggin'? It's like 30, 40 feet, something like that, from the base of the top. The Great Wall. The Great Wall.
It differs depending on the area. I know it varies
some, but like average height, if you're looking at like, I'm just guessing, 30, 40 feet, something like that, based on pictures that I've seen. That's what...
15 to 30 feet high.
Okay, so 15 to 30. So a little shorter than I thought. So averages out to like between 20 and 25 feet. So, dude.
The average is 25.6 feet.
25 feet. Dude, 25 feet high for 13,000 miles.
That's a lot. That's a lot of material.
Dude, that is a buttload of
That's materials. A lot. I'll be real with you. I didn't know the Great Wall of China was that many miles.
Dude, it's... Yeah, I
would have guessed it was like 1,000.
Well, that's what I was thinking, like between 1,000 and 2,000 miles. 13,000 miles? You mean to tell me that thing... Even if it was under construction when Marco Polo was there, he'd have been talking about that thing. You couldn't exist there and not know about it and not mention... There's no way. You can't convince me that dude was not aware of that thing if...
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that... Okay.
Okay. So they're building this wall 13,000 miles long. Now I get that like Mongolia was a little bit of a threat. You don't do that for a little bit of a threat. You do that for... If and this is just if China is the one that built it, you do that because there is a super duper advanced race of giants that will just obliterate you if they come through, kind of thing.
Well, okay,
not hey these guys that are pretty decent. When you've got the Chinese making like they were advanced too, you know what I mean? And so it's not like they were just like peasants. But
apparently they're advanced enough to build that freaking wall, but they weren't advanced enough to just fight Mongolia.
Right. That's what exactly.
Well, so I was going to go that route or the other route. How long was Mongolia like that level of a threat? It wasn't that long, was it? It was like maybe a couple hundred years longer than it took to build that freaking wall. I guarantee you that. We're learning a lot of things live right now.
For about 100 years. Right
did
about
not-
during the time in which they built the wall.
You ain't build that wall in 100 years.
I don't feel like it's possible.
No.
Even, I you know, let's say,
Let me rephrase. Humans did not build
Right.
that wall in 100 years.
well, let's say,
Not with current tech.
your thought process, obviously they're not starting at one end and going to the end and just finishing it. The only way you could do that is if about every 10 miles you had a unit making the wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so we're just going to dedicate the entire population of freaking China.
That's what I was going to say. You're going to spend so many resources building the wall that you're now open to invasion. It's interesting. I don't know. I haven't studied it. I will admit 100%. I do not know enough about the Great Wall, and somebody is probably just getting ready. They've got it all typed out and they're getting ready to hit send. And now I'm talking to that person, buddy. Be gentle with us. Neither one of us have studied the Great Wall of China. We don't know.
Correct, but I want to.
13,000 miles is absurd, dude.
Regardless of whether it's possible.
Even if you had 130 units of people building the wall.
That's
still
100 miles per unit.
Yeah.
And okay, so
I mean, I guess I don't. That's insane.
Let's
I guess you could do 100 years in that. But
let's say it's possible.
It's tough.
Why?
Right.
130 units of how many men do you think it would take for that to be done in 100 years?
They built it to the ocean, dude. They were like, this is.
You're going to dedicate all of those working age men, fighting age men to like building a wall instead of like actively holding off the frickin' Mongol horde?
Right.
Why? Now, I'm not a military commander, but I just feel like that's not a particularly tactically sound idea. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know. As soon as I read
also,
that...
weren't the Mongols invading the Middle East during the bulk of that?
Invading all yeah.
Because that's what spawned the, like, Islamic revolution there was... Weren't they? Because okay, so basically the Mongols, from my understanding of what I've studied, the Mongols came in, conquered the region, realized that it would be easier if they did it under the tents of Islam. And so then all of their soldiers, quote unquote, converted to Islam and began shoving the concept of Islam into the Middle East. Or that they naturally converted Islam.
It's been too long since I had history class.
So a lot of that, the Mongols, the Mongols weren't just attacking China over and over and over again. Yeah. Even if they came through once and just decimated things and they moved on to the Middle East.
Yeah.
Or wherever else, Europe, and because they went into Europe and all kinds of places. So let's say you're going to then spend 100 years building a wall for somebody that left. Like, if they were at that advance, they'd have just come in and taken you over, and you ain't building a wall.
That's
because now you're Mongoloid,
right?
Mongolian. I think I just made a slur word.
You didn't make it up, but I think I just used a slur word. You were real close. It's kind of like the hard R, but with a D. Mongolian.
Anyway, Mongolian. They be Mongolian.
Okay. Let me ask you, do we have enough time to get into anything further? Or are we kind of finishing off on the wall for today?
We probably should start wrapping it up pretty soon.
Okay. So I got genuinely ticked at whoever wrote the thing that I was reading that mentioned the Marco Polo thing, because the way they dismissed it was conspiracy theorists don't care about facts or logic. That was like when they mentioned the 13th century versus 16th century thing, and I was just like, what a brain dead take. What a stupid thing to freaking like act so certain over, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you just take a second to think about what we just discussed, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense that he wouldn't have mentioned that. And that was like their main thing. Like, the only real defense that they had on that particular piece of evidence. I gotta ask you.
Oh wait, so I have a timeline that would make you even more upset.
Goody. Let's see it.
The initial walls were built during the spring and autumn period, 770 to 476 BCE. So then in the 7th century BC, they began building it. The 3rd century BC connected and expanded the existing walls into a more unified structure. So it existed in the 3rd century. And then in the 14th through the 17th centuries, the Ming Dynasty then went through and rebuilt and then expanded the best preserved sections of the Great Wall.
Okay, so now...
And now they are ongoing renovating. So there would have been a Great Wall of some capacity that would have existed
long before Marco Polo. Yeah.
And then construction from the Ming Dynasty went through 1368 through 1644. So they'd have been rebuilding it.
I was gonna say
they would have been rebuilding it during that period.
The build, according to that timeline, also the build was over quite a few hundred years.
That's 2,000 years, basically.
Lot more sense to me.
That
sounds significantly more plausible. And if that's the case, then maybe.
My question still goes back to why 2,000 years.
Yeah, we're going to dedicate...
We're building a wall?
We're going to dedicate thousands and thousands of people over a couple thousand years to
America's
building
been
a wall.
Building a wall for like 100 years, I guess.
Dude, we've been... Okay.
There's stretches of the border that we keep building and then the next president tears them down. So, I mean, to build 13,000, well, maybe it does take 2,000 years.
I want to... get people to think. Let me ask you this. How long does it take to fix a 10-mile stretch of interstate? How long? How many times have you made a trip that you regularly make on like I-80 or I-90 or I-25?
It is never ending.
And it's the same section that's been under construction for 2 years.
Never ending.
It happens all the time. We can't build a freaking road in 10 years, but you're trying to tell me that they dedicated all those resources, with no power tools, by the way, to making a freaking 25-foot high wall for 13,000 miles? Yeah. For what?
It's crazy.
For what?
It's crazy.
So my final question. I want to ask this to kind of wrap up. Did you pay attention? Did you notice what the first thing that comes up if you type in Tartaria conspiracy theory?
I didn't.
It's like the top result. If you just Google it real quick. Just Google Tartaria conspiracy theory and read. I think it's either the first or the second entry. And this is going to go back to what I said about arguing so hard that I absolutely believe it's the affirmative.
Popped up was the mud flood.
Okay, the first thing that came up for me when I Googled this was how to rebuke people who believe in Tartaria or something to that effect. It's like how to argue against this conspiracy theory. It's just like, okay, why? Why do you care?
Real.
Why do you care? Yeah. If it's no different than any other conspiracy theory as far as you're concerned. Right. It's just stupid people who believe in stupid things.
It's the flat Earth. It'll just okay.
So why do you care?
Yeah.
Do you feel the need to educate people on how to argue against this?
Right.
If it's not true.
Yeah.
Why bother? Why spend so much time crapping on people that you don't think are intelligent enough to figure out that this is not true?
Right.
Air quotes.
And that's what we go to, if Tartaria did exist to a level where we still know its name.
Yeah.
It existed in conspiracies. There is a intentional attempt to cover it up.
Yeah.
And my brain starts asking questions about going into the Mandela effect, and we talked about last week.
Mm-hmm.
Why the need to, exactly like you're talking, but now it's taken a step further of why the need to even discredit it.
Right.
And for me, that the way my brain works, and this will tell you everything you need to know about me. When I'm worshiping in church and I'm like, man, I'm in it. My hands are up. I'm worshiping. And then the worship leader goes, all right, now everybody put your hands up and worship. My hand literally goes, cool, you ruined it. And I put my hand down.
Yep.
And I instinctively, and you tell me I can't do something, my brain becomes obsessed with, yeah, I can totally do that. Mm-hmm. When I was a little kid, Fun story. My dad was laying cement in our basement in our house, and I was maybe, I'd have been 5, pretty young. And the stairs to our basement go lined up, and then there was a wide little, maybe 3-foot wide patch of a hallway that he was re-cementing. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to jump over it to get to where my dad and my brother were. My dad says, "You can't make that jump." And then instead of saying, "Do not do this," he said, "You can't make this jump." "Yeah, I can. You better not try. Just watch me." Guess what? I didn't make the jump because as soon as I started to run down the stairs, I tripped and fell basically face first into the... No. I take it back. I'm remembering it wrong. My dad caught me before I landed.
Okay.
But I had tripped on the way down. And so I didn't even touch it. And he whooped me up the stairs, which if you know my childhood, whatever. Mm. But needless to say, I probably deserved that one a little bit. But that just tells you everything you need to know about my characteristics.
Yeah.
So you tell me Tartaria didn't exist. Okay. Why all of this stuff? Tartaria doesn't exist. Okay, but why all of this stuff? Why are you asking about Tartaria? Now I need to know more about Tartaria.
Right.
It's the MK Ultra effect. It's the there's so many things. It's like young Earth, old Earth. There's all these things. It's like when people are, and I'm even finding myself obsessed a little bit with flat Earth, because when you tell when you treat someone like they're stupid because they have a different point of view than you, my brain goes, okay, why are you so upset about this?
Yeah.
And so I start doing research. It causes me to research. Now, my research might still confirm that, yeah, you were right. But I'm like, why the aggression? Exactly like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so going back to exactly that, Tartaria is one where I wasn't even going to touch it because I wanted to do research and stuff. Mm-hmm. But the more that people, exactly that of, Tartaria is just a dumb conspiracy theory that didn't even exist. The more that I came across those, the more I was like, I need to actually do my own research in this.
Yeah.
Going back to the, 2020 or 2020 thing of the don't do your own research. How dare you?
Yeah.
My brain was like, then I definitely need to do my own research.
Yep.
And I'm obsessed that way.
Yep.
And so this is one where I'm glad it's going to take us a few weeks to unravel this because we have so much to talk about.
Right.
Because it's giving me time to look deeper into some of these things. Also, there's a theory that Genghis Khan was a Tartarian.
There's all kind. Yeah, I came across.
So maybe
that
oh my gosh.
It's just,
maybe the Mongolians. I'm gonna click that.
Gosh.
I just used a slur again. Anyway, that cut was great. Maybe the Mongolians were just Tartaria and they're like,
yeah,
it was these people over here, this country, and then we're like, what? They're just sheep herders. Yeah, they were the Mongolians. They were this mighty empire. What? Maybe it was. I don't know.
I won't say that I'm convinced of a lot of this stuff, but the more people try, like the louder people yell that I'm stupid for even thinking about it, the more I want to look into it. And
Same.
I do feel like there has to, man, anytime anybody's this anti anything, there's some level of truth. There's something being covered up.
Something there that is covered up. Yeah.
Our job isn't to prove conspiracy theories right. It's to find out what the heck there is to learn about it. And if there's more, I'm fully convinced there's more to it.
Yeah,
I'm not fully convinced that it's what everybody says it is. No. I am just fully convinced that anytime there's this many people this angry about random people they don't even know believing that something is deeper,
believing
than
in
meets
a
the
random
eye,
conspiracy theory,
the more I'm like, there's got to be something there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And also, the point of this podcast isn't to determine whether something is or isn't real. It's to get people doing their own research, thinking for themselves. And as when I preach my sermons, my whole point is read the Bible for yourself. Don't let your pastor tell you what it says.
Yeah.
Make sure you're doing the research and reading it. Same thing with our conspiracy theories. Don't let us tell you whether a conspiracy theory is real or not real. We're never even going to make a definitive stance on whether something's real or not anyway.
Yeah.
Because I just want you doing your own research, looking into this stuff, asking questions. And I think that as citizens of the United States, we are better off asking hard questions than we are just being sheep and following on.
Yep.
The more sheep-like you are, the less likely I'm going to get along with you, because the conversations are just so, bro, if I want to know your opinion, I'll just watch CNN later tonight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I'll just watch Fox News later.
Yeah.
That's no, we need to have differing thoughts.
Yeah. If you believe for a second that we don't actually stand on that, get in the Discord.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
We have.
Bro, Phil and I have gone rounds with some of the things we disagree on.
Yeah.
And we're cool with disagreeing with each other, and we're
Yep.
still great friends. And that's, bro, my brother. Me and my brother disagree on like 90% of life.
Yeah.
But honestly, our conversations are so good because we can disagree respectfully.
Yeah.
Also, I like to poke his buttons, and he doesn't react. Anyway. Mike, I love you. He'll listen to this in like a week and be like, oh, I heard that text message. Anyway, I'm rambling now. This was fun. Part 2 of 2 or 3 of Tartaria will be next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with a friend. And if you wouldn't mind doing us a favor, like literally, we are now monetized, which means
Yay.
that annoying commercial that started right off the bat, that's a minute long. Like, that's because we're monetized now. So every time you share an episode with a friend, that actually literally does increase our revenue now. We actually will make money off of that. Now, it's not a lot of money. It's not enough for us to even buy new equipment yet. We haven't even gotten our first deposit yet because there's a minimum, but it does add up. And so if you wouldn't mind taking a second, sharing this with a friend, it does actually affect us at this point, and we do notice. And so thank you guys. Keep being your BA best. We love you guys, man. Okay, bye.
In the ancient days of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet heeding the Maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall? Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear the call?